there, gang. Dr. J for, guess what? Sales and business tips. Now, today is a special edition. Oh, yes. I've been hounding this lady to get her online to actually give you some absolute gold based on the current circumstances. And let's face it, it's the new way of doing business. HR is a topical topic at this point of time, and a lot of people are talking about what's happening in our economy, in the world, but also what's happening at home. And HR is all about making sure that people are having structure and making sure that they're happy and maybe fixing, let's say, problems in the workplace. And there's no one else that I could actually recommend higher than Karen Hillen. Now, Karen Hillen has been doing HR for a very long time. She's an expert. She has her own company. She works with companies all around Australia, and she actually works with us and a lot of our businesses. So welcome, Karen. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Steve. I really appreciate the opportunity to come and talk to you.
Look, I've actually was really excited about getting you on because there's lots of conversations taking place, especially about working from home. And given that, the last 2 years, lots of us have been working from home, and a lot of people are doing that. The entrepreneurs don't have to have spaces to have an office with rent, but they can do a really good job with virtual components. And it also allows us to then have great team members that maybe don't live in your neck of the woods still work for you. But I really love what you sent me the other day. And let me show everyone on the on our broadcast. This is really great working from home checklist. And I had a look at it. I said, wow, this is a structure that actually allows people to work from home effectively. So I'm going to ask you lots of little questions about it, Karen, and also some topical questions as we get to the wrap up. So I want to ask you this question. It's quite important. What are some of the pitfalls of working from home? Now, we're going to talk firstly from a employee's perspective and then from an employer's perspective, because we have both in our Sales Authority Club and also in the Sales Success Club. So I'd like to know some of the pitfalls. So we're going to start with the top of the tree, CEOs and business owners. If they're working from home, they've got a company, what are some of the pitfalls or some of the things that they say? Two, let's just give two.
Okay, so I suppose just a little bit of context. I've sent that working from home checklist out to people recently because at the moment with the coronavirus, a lot of people are having to switch to working from home. So it's a very new thing for a lot of people. So in that context, it's become more important in the last few weeks to be able to make sure that you've got a bit of an idea of what conditions you're going to put around things. But from a CEO point of view, I work from home. I'm the CEO of my business. It's just me in the business, but I work from home. I don't need an office, and wherever I am, I can work from home. So I suppose some of the pitfalls I find is being disciplined and structured and making sure that you're being productive and getting the most out of the hours that you're working in the day. So for me, it's about making sure that I have a to-do list, make sure I have a plan of what I want to achieve for the day. And for me, because I don't have a boss to check in with, it really is about making sure that I've got that discipline myself. So some of the things that I find work really well for me, because I do get distracted very, very, very easily, is making sure that you have things like sprints. So, the Pomodoro method, where you might set a sprint, have a bit of a 5 or 10 minute break, then go back, and be really clear about what you want to get achieved in those periods of time as well. I live right near the beach, so it's nice to be able to go, okay, I'm going to do this sprint for say 45 minutes and then go for a 15-minute walk outside. Probably a bit limited what you can do at the moment with the whole, self-distancing and restrictions, but I live at a pretty quiet beach, so there's not a lot of people around. So I suppose making sure that you have that balance as well. So for me, I suppose the main things are being focused, having structure, and also having those breaks so you can be really focused on what you're doing when you are working.
So from a CEO's perspective and also from a business owner's perspective, I think you hit the nail on the head. You're at the top of the tree, you're not accountable, and what tends to happen is, we can get distracted, I can do it when I want to. We've got this mindset that it's okay. I'd like to get your feedback on this, and because we've had very large offices, we've had multiple offices, and we also work remotely as well. And I know that something that works well for me is I make sure that, firstly, I get dressed for work.
Great point.
I get up in the morning, I do my exercise or meditation, whatever's on the cards for the morning, my routine, and this is an important word, a routine, and then I get dressed for work. Now, guess what I do? I then go out. I walk out of my place, and I'd go downstairs and have a coffee. Then I'll get up and I'll walk straight into my office and I'm at work. I don't go in the lounge room unless until I'm done and dusted. This is what I do. It's a routine. And then I'll do my stuff that's virtual a lot of the time now. But also if I'm working from home, I'll make sure that if I have a break, I don't have a break in my house. I go out. I'll go and get lunch. I don't make a sandwich. This is just me. And it means that I treat my work environment as work, as a room. And then I will then, when I leave work, I go out the door. And the reason I did this is because I was perpetually sitting on the couch, doing stuff at my computer, at the dining room table. I was all over the shop. And guess what happened? When I started sitting at the couch and I started sitting at my dining room table, I started thinking of work. It's called an anchor. And I find this is really distracting for me. And if I don't actually treat it as a work environment, I just wanted to, with those things, you think that would be working for a CEO, owner, manager type scenario that works from home? That's just me. That's all I'm just saying, though.
Oh, absolutely. I'm actually going to steal those things and start doing those things myself. That's gold. Like really having that structure around walking out the door, getting a coffee, and then coming in and knowing that that's your starting time. So you're the boss. You can probably be a little bit flexible about your starting time.
No, I'm not allowed to be late.
But that's awesome. And I love the idea of actually going out for your lunch break as well, because those things are really important. You know, we have a lunch break, and if you're an employee, you have a half-hour unpaid lunch break. Why not be the same if you're the CEO or the business owner? So I love that idea, to be able to get out, get some fresh air, have a break, you know, put on some music, do a meditation, go for a walk around the block, whatever that might be. Then you come back refreshed. I love it. I'm definitely going to do that.
Terrific. All right. Well, as long as you're the expert, but this is just little tidbits that I've done old and ugly these days to try to create new things. Now, we're going to come down now to the employees. Now, if you're a CEO, a general manager, the leader, and you've got team members that are working from home, you've got your, let's say, your admin people, you've got your sales people. And this day and age, we really, you know, this 9 to 5 mentality doesn't exist anymore. It gets the job done. If you measure the outcomes, you're all good. But what are some of the concerns that you find that general managers and managers have on their staff working from home? And I'll dovetail it. I want to, and how can we fix them?
Okay, so I suppose the big one's going to be accountability. So as a business owner, CEO, manager of staff that are working from home, whether that's on a short-term basis because of the environment we find ourselves in at the moment, or whether that's because you have somebody who always works from home, I think having the accountability of making sure people understand what their structure looks like, and some of those things we just talked about, I think are transferable to employees. So having the structure, making sure they understand what their day looks like, and making sure they understand that there are certain things they have to get done in that day. So, and again, it might not be you have to get this work done between 9 and 5. It might just be, these are the outcomes you have to meet today or by tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock or whatever that might be. So if there's that element of flexibility, because it's not, I suppose, time critical in relation to needing to talk to clients in office hours, for instance, there's probably a little bit more flexibility, but I think you still need that accountability of making sure that you've got some KPIs or you've got targets that you've got to meet. So employees still have that structure. I think it's more important to have that structure when you're working from home, because you don't have the, I suppose, that confines of an office to be able to go, okay, right, I'm at work, I've got to get these things done. So structure is really important, and making sure that, I don't know, it might just be a 5-minute check-in meeting every morning on Zoom.
I like what you were saying about time. One of the things that I find from, I've got teams that work from home all over Australia and all around the world. One of the things I find that if you don't set time frames to get things completed, now I need this done today, it's not good enough. You need to give them a time frame. So that gives them the urgency to get things done.
Yeah.
Now, what you ignore and accept becomes the standard. I'll say that again. What you ignore and what you accept becomes the standard. So if someone doesn't get it done on time and it's a reasonable time frame, or a report doesn't get done or whatever, and you let it go from a work from home, from my perspective, if from a working from home perspective, if you do not follow it up, you've now set a standard that's okay. Now that's a big rock. Well, I've been working remotely with my team for quite some time now. If I don't hold them accountable to that time frame, and if you're not diligent on getting back to them, and by the way, when they comes in early, just give them a heads up, and but I'm not talking about criticism. I'm talking about, well, hang on a tick, that was the time frame. What got in the way? And if you don't talk about it, it's not important. That's number one that I found. And the second one that I found is that when someone is not used to working from home, let's say a new person starts, or we've now been told to go and work from home, and they've never worked from home, you have to teach them how to work from home. Because all these people are being sent home, work from home. They got no idea on accountability. There needs to be some nurturing and saying, this is the process. We're going to teach you. We're going to work with you for the next 5 days to make sure you're productive, because you will be unproductive sometimes because you're missing your buddies and talking. And if you don't teach them how to work from home, I find that this is an incredible a challenge. And by the way, guys, from my world, working from home is hard. It sounds terrific. It's tough. As Helen said, there's tons of distractions. It could be the thing you want to paint in the corner and all that sort of stuff. And you've got to have your work environment spick and span. You've got to have a desk which is clean, and you've got to make sure you're trained. I believe that a lot of people working from home are going to be at sea because no one knows how to train them. So I'd love you to tell them two things that you think that they should be trained in or learn before they start, or now they're working from home, what they should be doing. Just two big rocks.
Yeah, look, so true in relation to, learning to work from home. And, I think one of the things I find too is working from home, you find all the things that you would normally hate doing, like putting the washing on or doing the washing or stacking the dishwasher. So structure and discipline, are probably the two biggest things, and support. So from an employer, manager, CEO point of view, making sure you're providing that support and structure to your employees. If you're an employee, asking questions, asking for guidance, making sure that you really check in regularly. This is what I'm doing. Is this okay?
I like it. I think the guys are going to listen to that. It's not always about the manager and the CEO, the general manager checking in on you. I think what Helen says, gold. This is gold. Check in with them. You call them. Hey, I've just checked it. I've just done a great call. I've actually finished all the invoices. Oh, gee whiz, I've just finished this completed. And check in with the manager or your team leader, or even one of another team member, as a team of employees. we sometimes put so much pressure on the top end to actually check in with you and, oh, that's great leadership. But if you're a part of a team, I think what you said is great. Check in with the team, check in with you, take responsibility. Magic. That's a good one. Hopefully the guys are listening. Get your trusty pen out, write it down.
And look, I think that's the thing, you know, like whether it's temporary in the current situation or whether it's longer term, that is one thing that I think people really struggle with if you're working from home, is missing the team, missing being able to have a chat with people. And especially if it is just a temporary arrangement while, you know, people are, you know, semi-lockdown or, you know, lockdown, whatever the situation is, it's hard to adjust. So being able to check in, having those regular Zoom meetings, and it might just be a 5-minute Zoom. I don't know, it could even just be like a buddy situation. If you've got a team of people working from home, it might be a buddy call that you check in with someone for 5 minutes at 2:00 in the afternoon, or whatever that might be. You can make it up yourself. But I think being able just to have that social interaction is still really important, because a lot of people love the social interaction of work. So taking that away all of a sudden without a lot of structure, people will struggle.
So given that you just said something that was quite interesting, our good friend Jamie Hayes, who's on our webinar on Saturday, one of his son works for a company, and they're working from home. And what you said, I think just hit a chord with me. What they do is on a Friday afternoon at 4:30, they have coffee Zoom. And what they do is they come on and they just chew the thin. They don't talk about work. They just come in and they talk, just chitter chat. So what you could do is, it's something that came to mind when you said it, is that, well, at 12:30, why don't we have lunch together and actually go on a Zoom and have a chit chat and so forth. And it's not all about work and talking about it, just talking about what they're doing at home, the jigsaw puzzles they've done, or whatever the case may be. And then in just half an hour, then you'll all go together. That would be a great idea, and just have that social element. So it breaks the day up a little bit, because it can be a little bit lonely.
Absolutely. And, you know, I think the thing is, at the moment, you know, usually you would say, you know, we can all chat about the footy, but no footy. So thinking about, and it could be have a bit of a fun activity, and it might be, you know, we're all going to talk about a new hobby that we've come up with, because, you know, I know my husband, for instance, he's really upset about the fact that there's no soccer on. So, or, you know, what else are you going to do? Oh, I've done this. And he might even give your teammates an idea of a new hobby or a new way to, you know, pass the time and do something different, try something different.
Well, I think that's a nice little adage for the employees. And by the way, if your husband wants to watch the footy, there's tons of replays. All right. So.
Oh yeah, I know. I know. We have KO. He's got plenty of replays to watch.
All right. Now, you've said the word a couple of times, and I'm going to raise the ugly head. And it's not about sales and all that sort of stuff today. It's about HR. But accountability is really what HR is all about. It's setting the guidelines and then making sure it's accountable. Now, you've obviously said it's important. Working from home, accountability and numbers and sales and that sort of stuff is important. But what if someone is doing the invoicing or doing some other things? What do you think the accountability level should be? Should it be a structure where they check in just for 5 minutes on the phone to say what they've done, let's say every hour and a half? Or is that going to say, oh, it's going to do my head in? Should it be at lunchtime, check in, see how you're going? I care. What do you think?
I think it's probably going to be different for each person. I would think at least, if it's new, at least twice a day.
Twice. Okay. I wanted a number. Twice a day. So let's put it into perspective. Is that in the morning to say what your plan is? And is that the end of the day when you're done? Or is that half time when we're actually talking about wrapping up the day? Or what would you say?
Again, I think it's going to depend on the time that the person, like the supervisor or the business owner, has to do those things. So they're going to have to schedule that into their day. But It could be 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes at the end of the day. And that could be a team Zoom where everybody gets on at the start of the day, everyone gets on at the end of the day. So it's just a bit of a check-in. This is what I've got on today. This is what I've achieved. And then there could be another one somewhere along the day, just to check in along the way as well. Okay. For others, it might be every hour if there are time critical things that need doing. I think there's going to be an element of everyone's probably a little bit different. Some people are probably...
I think they've got to actually tailor it accordingly. I agree with you, but there needs to be some minimums. And what I want to share with everybody, what should be the minimum. Now, they could add more to it, and I'm sure they will. I think what you said is a 5-minute one. And they're called huddles, aren't they? It's a great way of doing it. And there's usually 4 questions that they answer, and they just go for gold. And then at the end of the day, when it comes down to these types of scenarios, you said something also that was very important. Does the manager have time that is scheduled in the day? I'm just going to put my CEO hat on and also my consultant's hat on. From my perspective, it is absolutely mandatory they make that time. It's not a situation where, oh, I'll do it if I got time. If you've got team members, they are your priority to make sure you put it in. And that's an appointment, just like it would be with a client. And if you've made your appointment with your manager, you make sure you make it. You can't say, oh, I'm busy, I can't do it. It's not a situation which I believe is something that I just believe that it's just in my bubble, whether it's right or wrong, that it has to be a priority and it's a top of mind activity. And it should be set in stone like a not negotiable standard. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It has to be scheduled into their day. So exactly. It's not about if I get time, I'll check in. It's about making sure that they schedule it in. So it might just be 5 minutes somewhere throughout the day, and it'll be, if the manager's got to check in with 5 people, they might say, okay, well, I'm going to block out half an hour at 2:00 and I'm going to schedule everybody in at 5-minute intervals. Right. Whatever that might be, however it works in the daily schedule. But yeah, look, I agree. I think it has to be scheduled in. It's like anything. It was something that you said earlier too about, what you ignore becomes normal. You can't go, oh, I don't have time today, I'll do it tomorrow, because then tomorrow turns into the next day. All of a sudden you're at the end of the week and you haven't checked in with your employee once.
I've seen that happen regularly. And what becomes, oh, look, and this word autonomy, which was very clicky about 2 or 3 years ago. And then it became, let's say, poor leadership if you micromanage somebody. Well, I'm from a different place. If you don't someone doesn't actually micromanage the activity, there's a care factor of 0 about the task factor. So I believe that someone needs to do that. And my recommendation to everyone from what you've just said is that it's mandated and it becomes an appointment. It's not negotiable if you want them to be cared for, nurtured, maybe, revved up a little bit, and then especially working from home. That should be done in the office, but we get this, I'm too busy. Well, we're not too busy. And if you're going to have outcomes which are going to maintain productivity, those check-ins and regular conversations are critical.
Absolutely. And whether you work from home or whether you're in the office, that all really fits into making sure that people know what's expected of them. And it goes into the whole thing of, everyone's got a different opinion of performance reviews, appraisals, whatever you want to call them. And it's a similar sort of thing to that. I think it's a good idea to check in with your employees or your team regularly and have those chats regularly. How's everything going? I noticed that you probably could have done this a little bit better. Here's some things that I do. So it's a shorter, I suppose, version of regular performance review, performance appraisal, rather than the whole tick and flick once a year form that's probably not as effective, but it's just in a different form. So I think it's about checking in, talking to people, how are you going today? Have you found some problems? Give some tips. This is what I find works really well. Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, no, well, I've done it this way. Oh, great. Okay, that works.
So given that you talked about a structure there, and I'm just going to digress here for a tad, because everyone should have a job description with tasks and duties and so forth. And that's another conversation. But let's say it's in place. We're not normally working from home. Should that job description be altered, now have an addendum to say, these are the check-in times, this is what you're going to do, this is how things have changed because we're no longer working in the workplace? Should there be a checklist, or like you've got here, but maybe just to adjust how they do work and how they check in with their manager, because you don't want them making up systems, you want them doing things. Should there be an adjustment or an addendum to their job description and agreed upon?
Maybe not in the job description or the position description, but if you have task lists, or if you have, job lists that you need to follow on a daily or weekly basis, I think it would be good to add them there.
Okay, so a job list, a change where you've got these tasks and this is how you're going to do them, given that we're working from home. Terrific.
Yep.
And that could be and then you don't just give it to them, you got to teach them how to do it.
Yep.
All right, now, I loved what you wrote here in your checklist. Is absolutely gold. And I want to go through some of the bullet points just quickly. You talked about the layout of the working environment at home. What do you mean by layout?
So I suppose this is getting into a bit more of the sort of, work health and safety, occupational health and safety side of things. If you've got people working from home, whether it's on a temporary basis or it's a more permanent arrangement, you really need to satisfy yourself that they've got a safe and comfortable work environment. So making sure that they have a good setup in relation to their desk and their chair and their computer and things like that. So that could be anything from making sure that somebody has a good chair to people may feel more comfortable having a stand-up desk or whatever those things might be, but just making sure that you can feel comfortable that while your employee is working from home, that they're still safe. So there are no trip hazards, that, their desk is set up so they're not going to get a sore neck. I've probably been guilty in the past of working on my laptop on the lounge. Not good. So making sure that you are sitting at a desk properly, and you can have a checklist where your employee can check off all of those things, making sure that, you've got, appropriate PowerPoints and lighting and all of those sorts of things. Okay. So you can satisfy yourself that it's still an appropriate work environment.
Okay. That's great. So before the person goes to work from home, you can say, well, where are you going to work from? Well, I'm going to work on my lounge room. I'll say, terrific. So let's just see the layout. And it's actually having a care factor and say, what's your chair's like? Oh, I've got a little stool. Have you got a proper chair that you can sit in? And just talk about it. And then say, have you got enough PowerPoints? Have you got the facilities to have enough lighting? I think you said it as well.
Yep.
And I noticed in your checklist, you said photographs. Are you saying not just take it on hearsay, but set up your office or set up and take some photographs and send them to me so I know it's true? Is that that's what I'm taking? It's a great idea, but is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, it just covers you from the point of view if somebody is working from home, they had an injury, for instance, at least you'd be able to say, okay, well, these are all the things that I undertook to make sure that they had an appropriate place to work. So yeah, taking a couple of photos, they can be on your phone. It doesn't have to be anything too elaborate, but I'd be wanting to see some photos of the workspace. So take a photo of the desk, take a photo of the way the computer's set up, take a photo of the chair, that type of thing. And I suppose when we're talking about working from home, it usually is going to be that type of setup. So making sure that people are comfortable and they've got an appropriate workspace. So yeah, taking a couple of photos. It doesn't have to be 20 photos, it might be 2 or 3, as long as you can satisfy yourself as the business owner or the manager that your employee is set up in a good way.
bought I help a lot of franchises come over from overseas to Australia. And one of the big things here, and I've really just brought it all back to me. One of the things that they had to do before they actually built their premises, they did their fit out, before they were able to open their business, they had to go through and had as a checklist of a specific type of photographs that they had to do. In other words, they had to comply. So taking a photograph of where the PowerPoint is, or where you're going to be sitting, and where's the amenities and so forth. What's the lighting look like? Let's have a look at it. And having a checklist, I think that's really smart. And it doesn't have to be too many, but have it mandated. These are the 8 things you're going to send me as a photograph to prove that you're going to be safe, you're going to be working. It's good. So that's actually gold, and that's a care factor too. And by the way, in the Sales Authority Club a little while ago, we actually got everyone to take a photograph of their workspace, and we then said, clear the workspace, make sure you had everything off your desk, and clean desk policy. So cluttered workspace, cluttered mind. And a lot of people did that, and it made a massive difference, because sometimes it looked like a bomb's in it. Oh dear. All right,
yeah.
now.
And just on your point about, like even PowerPoints, where they are and where you've got your desk, the last thing you want is to think that you've got somebody working from home and they've got an extension lead running across the floor because their PowerPoint's on the other side of the room. They get up to get a coffee or, go for a quick 5-minute walk, and all of a sudden they're tripping over their power lead. So just things like that as well.
Case, Karen, so if that was the case, and that was the only place where the chair was, and that's where the PowerPoint was, you'd say, well, look, that PowerPoint's a bit too late. I need you to shift where you're working from so it's closer. So you'd make the adjustment before you say, oh, well, the power's over there. So, well, how can you move the desk over or the chair over there accordingly? That's great, because if we don't make the suggestion, they're not going to do it.
Yep.
All right. Well, we're going to give the people the opportunity to get that checklist at the end, but I've got a couple of more questions, a very topical question that you've been inundated with. And it's talking about the situation of stand-downs, redundancies, lots of people that are unsure, getting them to have stand-down, like some big companies have announced here, and people taking holidays to make sure that they stay employed. Could you tell us some of the things that people should know, the employers, and then the employees? Where do they stand here?
Yep. So at the moment, things are changing daily in relation to different industries and different types of work that are being restricted or closed down. So I've been getting lots and lots and lots of questions over the last few days about what can I do with my staff? What's a stand down? Should I be sacking people because I have no work? Can I make them redundant? And lots of just, I don't even know what to do. So I suppose just really making sure that you're educating yourself about what entitlements are there and what you can and can't do legally. So the best place to go for that is the Fair Work website. Honestly, if you just search Fair Work coronavirus, you will get taken straight to the Fair Work website that has all of those different conditions. I suppose the main thing I'm being asked is, when can I stand down my employee? And actually, what is stand down?
Okay, so let's start with that. What does stand down mean?
Yep. So in a normal situation, stand down doesn't really exist. It does in the construction industry for severe weather, things like cyclones or, severe weather, inclement weather where people just can't work. There are stand down provisions. In a situation like this where people are unable to go to work, these stand down provisions apply. So I'll give you an example of one of my clients has a gym, and I know a lot of your community are in the fitness industry, so it's probably a relatable example. I think it was yesterday or the day before, 12 o'clock, all gyms are closed. So all of a sudden, gyms are like, okay, well, what am I going to do? It's a perfect example of you've got no choice as a business owner. You've been told by the government you have to shut your doors. So you've got no meaningful work for your employees. So there's a few things that you can do. You can ask staff to take leave, but you can't force them to take leave. If they're not happy to do that, or they've got a holiday booked, next year and they're saving their holidays, or they don't have any holidays accrued because they've just taken a holiday, that's when you would implement a stand down. So a stand down is without pay and it's for a period of time. Now, in the current climate, we can't really put timeframes around that because we don't know how long this is going to go on. But if you say to your staff, okay, I've been told I've got to shut my doors, I don't have any work for you, and I'm talking about permanent employees, you would say to them, I'm going to stand you down without pay. And as soon as everything's back to normal, you'll be straight back to work and, we'll attempt to get back to business as usual. It's different to redundancy. So I've had
Let me come back to the stand down then. So you've got two ways to do it. You can say to your team members, I've got no work, nothing, everything's disappeared. We've actually closed the doors. We can continue to pay you with your
annual leave. Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Once that's done, you'll still got a job, but it will be leave without pay.
It's not leave without pay. So
what's it called?
It's called stand down. So and that's a technicality, but it's stand down without pay. So what I'm finding is some businesses are at the point where they've been trying to keep going over the last couple of weeks. They're not even in a position where they can actually even offer their staff to take leave first. So they're just going straight to stand down. So they're standing.
They'll need to get advice on this. Obviously, this is just let's get people aware of that. So it's important that they'll talk to someone like yourself or an HR specialist. Is that right?
Absolutely. Or go to the Fair Work website and get the information. So it's fairwork.gov.au, and I think if you go on there, it takes you straight to the coronavirus page at the moment anyway.
There's sometimes those things are, they're informative, but the interpretation can be difficult. So guys, my recommendation here is go and have a look at it. Your interpretation might be spot on. I'm always cross the T's, dot the I's sort of a guy. I strongly recommend that you give advice on this. This is not my area of expertise. I know Karen is an expert, but we don't have time to go through the ins and outs. So that sort of thing, I would suggest that you would go and speak to a Karen Hillen and have that conversation. Now,
yep, and I think that's important. It's good to educate yourself, but if you're not sure, get some advice. Yeah. Because I'm working in that space every day. So I read it, I know what it means, I can interpret it. I'm not saying that, I'm better at doing those things than anyone else, but I'm doing it every day.
Yeah, well, look, but people do it every day, but this is what you've been doing a long time. And obviously you're here and I would recommend people to use you, but if they go to an HR specialist in general, they're
Absolutely.
Just the advice.
Yes.
Now you said another word, redundancy. Now that's not stand down, and we've explained it briefly what stand down is. If you're an employer and you're going to make, and the job just doesn't exist anymore, what does that mean? How's it different?
So I think if it doesn't exist anymore and you know that position's just not going to exist anymore, it might be a redundancy process. So again, you need to educate yourself about what you need to do. You've got to consult with the employees. There are periods of notice depending on how long the employee's been with you. And there are payments involved. Now, if you're a small business with less than 15 employees, you may not have to pay those redundancy payments, but some awards override that rule. So again, it's really important to educate yourself and get some advice. I would strongly suggest to anybody who's thinking about making somebody redundant that they consider stand down first and know the difference.
Okay, so I'm really glad you made that point, and I didn't want to dwell on the negative or whatever the case may be, but it's a question you said that's been coming up quite a lot. So guys, stand down, look after your team members, get them to holidays, keep them employed. We want to try to keep them there. I was told from another business that they said, well, I'll get you to work 3 days a week and then we'll use the holidays for the rest of them. And let's make sure we get through this. So lots of ways to do it, but don't make the mistake of thinking you know what to do if you haven't been given advice. Thanks, Helen. I know that was a big rock, but I wanted to give everyone a taste of that to make sure they're aware that they should go and get some advice on it. All right. Now we'll finish on a nice little positive note. What's a big rock, a thing that employers should be aware of now with some of the things that are available, let's say for the stimulus package and so forth, and those sorts of things. And there are lots of opportunities right now for employers and employees. So let's just have one each that they can say, hey, I could take advantage of that, or I could take advantage of this. One for an employer and one for an employee.
Okay, I'm definitely not an expert in relation to all of the things that you can access in relation to the stimulus package, but the most important thing for me is support and communication, probably on both sides. So if you're a business owner, making sure that your employees are okay and checking in with them, because it's a stressful situation for everybody. And if you do have to stand down a permanent employee, or if you've got casual staff that you can't offer work to and they're just not going to get paid either, checking in, coming up with whatever support you can. And that might just be asking people if they're okay, checking in with them regularly if you do have to stand them down or you've got casual staff that you can't offer work to, checking to see they're okay. Is there anything you can help them with? And it might just be a really small thing of, did you know about this information? Or, go and register on the Centrelink site. Or did you know that there's lots of information out there? Go and talk to your accountant, or go and talk to somebody who knows about all of these things. So I think communication, support, and making sure people have access to information. There's 3, sorry.
Terrific, that's terrific. I should add a couple of things that I've seen a few people do. I know a few people have had to do the stand down, and especially with the casuals and all the stuff. And what a few of the guys have done things for their team members. Number one was they went and saw some other casual work that was available. A friend of mine had to let his people go, but he had a couple of other buddies that had a 7-Eleven, and another one that had some opportunities at Coles because they were employing, so he put them at the front of the queue. So if you could actually help them get a job. And the other one was because there are some stimulus packages, employers got their casual and all their team members, someone stand down, and got them in front of their accountant and sat down with them and had the accountant explain what they needed to do, and actually physically help them go and get everything in place to get the subsidy from Centrelink, and also to be able to make sure that they had their finances in order. And he actually said, I'll get my accountant to do some of your accounts and so forth. So that was something that they did to make sure that they knew they were being looked after. I just thought that was really nice, and it was didn't cost them a lot of dough, a little bit of time. It also found them a job. I thought that was quite outstanding.
Absolutely, that's great. And I think that's the thing, it's a daunting process from an employee's point of view. If you've never had to apply for any sort of Centrelink benefits before, even knowing where to start. And, I'm a contractor. It's just me in my business. My husband runs his own business, and he's had quite a few courses that he runs cancelled. So we've been going through everything that we need to do today, and we don't think we're going to get to the point of having to claim money from Centrelink, but we registered today anyway. And I tried to do that yesterday. They've simplified the process today. So I didn't have a customer reference number. You don't need that today. You can go straight onto the MyGov account and register your intention to claim. You might never claim, but at least if you've done that, that's one step. So if you've got employers that are helping people do that, that's awesome, because it's daunting for a lot of people if they don't even know where to start.
No, you're absolutely right. I saw the minister from Centrelink come on television early this morning and said that the website's been changed. If you have a MyGov account, you can go and register, and then they will actually reach out to you, so you don't have to get into a line. Yep. All right. Well, terrific.
Yep. And I suppose just to finish up from an employee point of view, work with the business that you work in. Do what you can if you can. You know, I was talking to a client today and I felt so sorry for him, because he had gone to his employees and said, look, you know, I really want to work together. He pays all of these people way above award. And he talks to them, he said, look, can we all try and work together? And maybe if, you know, people are willing to maybe take a little bit of leave here and there, everybody can get through this without having to be laid off or stood down. His employees didn't want to do it. And I felt so sorry for him, because he's been so good to them. Right. So if you're an employee, if you can, do what you can to help your boss. And you might not be able to afford to take leave. And if you can't, you shouldn't do it. But think of what you can do to help your boss, your teammates, and it might just be something really small that really makes a big difference to somebody.
Look, sometimes it takes a little bit of a hit now to keep the thing going, and then that will come back in spades later. Be generous from employer and employee. So help your people, do a bit more. I'm telling all our guys in the SAC and also in the Sales Success Club, this is the time to do more. Not to do less, and not to be asked to be paid more, but let's show massive value at being a team member. If you can increase your value, you're going to be kept. If you're not increasing your value, then there's a possibility in the tough times that they have to let you go. So let's make sure we stay incredibly valuable and productive. And also, sometimes productive doesn't actually have to mean making lots of money. It could be collaboration and keeping a team strong.
Yep.
So,
and be nice and be kind to each other.
Absolutely. Look, Karen, I really appreciate all your time. Absolutely gold as normal. If people want to get that a checklist, how could they get that? And I know you've got some other really great documents, which you very kindly said the guys could download completely for free.
Yep. So I've got a website that has those forms and lots of other HR documents. It's myhrpartner.com.au.
I'm just going to get you to say it really slowly, because I'm sure everyone's getting their pen out to actually do this. I'll put it in the copy, but just say it nice and slowly for me.
Okay, so it's www.myhrpartner.com.au. You've got to subscribe, but it doesn't cost anything. So you just need to create a user login and password. And once you've done that, I don't bombard you with a million emails. You might get an email every now and then with some information that might be useful, but it gives you access to a lot of HR templates, checklists, links to lots of different HR information, and those documents are on that website.
Great. Well, look, I'll make sure that that's in the copy. Hey, guys, how good was that? What are you going to do at home? Make sure you've got your checklist. Go in there and download that and just subscribe and get all the other good stuff. And also for your employers and employees, you've got to understand a bit more of an understanding on what stand down is and how to take some leave. And, we don't want to get people redundant, so we're going to try to keep them. And employees, try to be generous and help your team. Employers, and do the same. So be kind to everybody, and let's get through this. And, by Christmas time, this will be a memory. So let's kick some goals. So thanks so much, Karen. I really appreciate your time.
That's okay. Thanks for the opportunity to talk to your crew.
Terrific. All the best. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks,
for now.
Steve.